Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, November 30th to Saturday, December 6th. So last week we kicked off Sagittarius season, and although that was definitely a change in the mood, in the attitude, it gave us a little tiny bit of a mini break. Of course, that mini break was only really kind of quarantined to the very beginning of the week, where we had a little bit more light, a little bit more positivity, a little bit more optimism, a little bit more room to breathe. But that energy shifted very quickly towards mid to end of the week because, of course, Saturn stood still. We had Saturn, the Lord of Karma, stationed direct here on the 27th. And of course, he's still standing still in preparation for this forward movement, this finale that he's about to put on from now until February. We also have the first quarter moon popping off in Pisces energy. And if you're with me here Friday evening, first of all, thank you for being here. Secondary to that, the first quarter moon in Pisces just happened. We're still sitting in it. And of course, the first quarter moon of any lunar phase is a time for action and choice and decision and growth. But that growth usually comes with a growing pain. We're building off of the new moon in Scorpio, which of course was a doozy. And the Pisces energy, because it is requiring endings and closures to karmic chapters, to emotional cycles, in combination with Saturn stationing direct in this Pisces energy, right now we're in this very weird space, this very weird vibe. And to add to this weirdness, we have Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, standing still as well as he prepares to station direct here tomorrow on the 29th. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of swirling, if you will. And because we are super close to kind of wrapping up November and super close to actually feeling a particular chapter come to an end, we are on this very weird precipice, if you will, where we don't know what to do. We don't know what we're thinking. We don't know what we're feeling. And to add to that, Venus is sitting at the late degrees of Scorpio energy as she is preparing to shift into Sagittarius energy here on the 30th. So that 29th degree of Scorpio energy is no joke. Of course, any placement at 29 degrees in any sign is no joke. But Scorpio energy, I don't know, death, destruction, endings, closures, in order for this rebirth, this resurrection to take place in our heart space. This is the dark feminine energy rising to the point where she is willing to cut out any people, places, or things that are going to keep her in a holding pattern. And because emotions kind of have to reach that breakdown versus breakthrough point, we're definitely struggling between our heart, Venus, our head, Mercury, and this forward momentum of Sagittarius season, pushing the storyline, pushing the narrative. And Saturn, now direct, is kind of preparing to, again, if we kind of think of Mr. Saturn as the general foreman, he's looking at the plans, he's been reviewing the plans, and now he's putting his hard hat on. He's getting all his gear, he has to go do a site visit, he has to kind of take stock, take inventory of where it is that the project is at, because again, we're going to be spending from now until February wrapping up this project. And of course, when I talk about project, it's a 30-year project, a 9-year project, a 3-year project that Saturn is very eager beaver to close the door upon. So this week, going to be a little bit of an interesting dynamic. Of course, we kick off the week with Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money. She's moving in that Sagittarius energy, which is great, except for the fact that she has this opposition with Uranus, the great awakener, retrograde at that 29th degree in Taurus energy before she actually shifts into that Sagittarius energy. And of course, it's going to destabilize us. Of course, it's going to put us in a situation where there's some wild card revelations and epiphanies popping off. But she is doing this in preparation to close out November, which of course was a very interesting month. It was a month that we were dealing with the vibration of 11 or 2, depending on which way you want to look at it. Either way, it was a master builder, master creator number where we were learning how to stabilize. Now, when you're learning how to stabilize while you're still in flux, that's a very hard thing to do. It's very hard to feel grounded, feel anchored at all. And of course, we're going to be shifting into December, which of course carries the vibration of 3, the Trinity. So the mind, body, soul recalibration is definitely taking place. We need to stabilize by getting in alignment, mind, body, and soul, before we can move on and move forward. And of course, we're going to be moving into the final month of this year of 9, which is wrapping cycles up, closing the door upon old chapters, really putting our new wants, needs, and desires into perspective, and therefore really realizing what is going to block us from doing that. And of course, any blocks, any obstacles, any challenges are going on the to-do list of what we have to release, purge, remove, and absolutely provide an ending and closure to. This week, as we transition into a new life lesson, a new vibration, a new frequency, we are also going to be moving through the moon's first quarter. Now, yes, we just had that first quarter moon phase, but what I'm really talking about is the moon is going to be in Aries energy at the beginning of the week, and it's going to move into its rulership in Cancer energy at the end of the week. And from Aries to Cancer energy, that is where we're rebuilding, realigning, recalibrating our identity, our emotional identity, what it is that we're thinking, what it is that we're feeling. We're going to be all over the place. Of course, this moon in Aries in combination with the sun and Sag, that's fire on fire action. We could definitely use some fire. We've been oversaturated in all of this water energy. And of course, fire is going to help dry up that water energy, dry up those emotions, and kind of reignite, if you will, a new spark, new fire, new flame within us. But it's going to get a little bit hectic. It's going to get a little bit overstimulating. And we are going to be moving towards this full moon in Gemini that will be popping off on the 4th. And so this full moon is going to be the climactic point in this lunar cycle that began under the new moon in Scorpio. And in Gemini energy, it's going to highlight where new perspectives, new ways of thinking, new information, new details are coming to light. That's going to totally change the game. Considering the fact that Mercury, who has rulership over that full moon in Gemini, is just stationing direct, still in his post-retrograde shadow period, still trying to put the pieces together, still trying to gain that clarity. The full moon in Gemini is definitely going to overwhelm the headspace. It's going to illuminate for us where it is that we're still kind of teeter-tottering between different choices, decisions, opinions even. The Gemini energy being represented by the twins, there is a huge division within thyself. And the full moon is going to illuminate new details, information, perspective, in order for us to gain the kind of clarity that we've been lacking and push ourselves into choosing, deciding, leaning towards one path, one decision point over the other. So that's going to be taking place midweek. That's definitely going to overwhelm the headspace, especially because, again, Mercury is just stationing direct. He is just putting the pieces together, just kind of, moving into this more sobered type of space. And we're definitely going to kind of feel the floodgates open, not only in our heart space, in our emotional realm, but the floodgates of our mental capacity. They're going to be opening as well, and we're going to be rapidly processing a lot of information, a lot of new ideas that are definitely going to help this Trinity type of energy throughout the course of December to get the mind, the body, the soul in alignment. So with that being said, we have some Ascension symptoms that are definitely going to pop off with the ever-changing energies here this week. But before I dive into that, I would just like to take a moment to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting. I want to thank those of you that have jumped over to my website. I really, really appreciate that support. I really appreciate the feedback as well. So far, all the comments have been good, thankfully. Change is never fun. I'll give us all that. It is going to take a little bit of time to get used to, for sure. But there's no better time to make that switch than right now, because there's some really good Black Friday deals that I have kind of offered out there. They are going to expire, though, at 1:11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time here on the 29th. So we are kind of in the final hours of those offers being available, but you should see them on your screen. I would definitely recommend that you take advantage of that, not only to apply that discount to whatever kind of guide, the energy guide, the astrology guide, the expansion guide that you feel called to pursue, but also 22% off any of those products in my shop. And specifically, I would just like to kind of highlight here, the 2026 astrology calendar is definitely worth taking a look at, especially applying that particular discount. We're moving into a brand new year, a year of one. So it's a brand new beginning of sorts. And to have a complete astrology guide available to you to kind of map out your life around where we know these activation points are going to kind of test us, highly recommend that you get yourself that 2026 calendar. And of course, what a great time to take advantage of jumping into a new subscription with a discount, because December's energy overview is coming at you. The zodiac forecasts are coming at you. And of course, we're working on the climactic point of the moon guide that is already, kind of activated, kind of already available, that you should already have downloaded. So like when it comes to that zodiac forecast that most people spend the money on at the beginning of the month, you could actually get a whole subscription for a month for much cheaper than that one guide. And I did it like that on purpose. I want to be able to provide you the assistance, the guidance, the support, not only to wrap up this year, but to set you up for the best year available that you could possibly align yourself with as we move into 2026. So again, I'm going to be streaming that particular information, those discount codes on the screen throughout this forecast. Definitely recommend that you take advantage of that. So now we're going to talk about some ascension symptoms that are definitely going to be popping off. I feel like they're popping off already. I know that Saturn stationing direct, that was a big deal. For the last couple of days, we've been at this standstill in time, even though time is a little bit wonky and definitely more in an acceleration than ever before, just because we're in Sag season and that always happens. Because Saturn rules over time, the last couple of days, time has definitely felt kind of slowed down, kind of altered in a way. And technically speaking, we haven't really adjusted to this particular stationing as of yet, because Saturn is still kind of, again, taking the time to take stock, to take inventory of all that is transpired and all that he needs to do. I want you to consider the fact that, we're wrapping up the final act here. And so, for this past week, Saturn's been behind the curtain, behind the scenes, waiting for the cue, waiting for the spotlight to be turned on, because we're about to take center stage here and we're about to make up for some lost time. We're going to wrap up this final act with as much grace, as much ease, as much perseverance, as much determination as we possibly can. There's no dress rehearsal anymore. This is, green light, go ahead. And we are definitely not messing around. But with Saturn stationing direct, in combination with this first quarter moon popping off in Pisces energy, it kind of feels heavy. And of course, Saturn brings the heaviness, the weight anyways. The first quarter moon is a point of action, but we kind of feel like our back is against a wall in order to decide or to put into action something that we've been on the fence about. And in Pisces energy, it's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of intuition. It's a lot of imagination. It's a lot of creativity. It's a lot of numbing as well. And I want to talk about numbing for a second, because we kind of feel everything at the moment, but yet at the same time, we feel absolutely nothing. And it's this weird space, this weird void that we find ourselves in while all of these energy shifts are kind of ramping up to recalibrate this new identity that we've been anchoring in and working on, and we're just not quite there yet. And so the numbing out, I would hope that you aren't, using drugs and alcohol as a numbing factor. If you are, they are definitely going to hit you like a ton of bricks, more so this weekend than ever, because again, Pisces energy is amplifying sensitivity specifically to substances in which we use to numb ourselves out. But there's this really heavy emotional fatigue, and it's probably going to kind of affect our physical energy as well. So emotional and energetic fatigue. And we have cold feet. We know we're moving on. We know we're moving forward. There's an audience out there. The curtains are about to open. We're about to take center stage, and we're a little bit nervous about it. We definitely have cold feet. We definitely are questioning whether or not we should just, run out the back door and abandon this final act altogether. But of course, we can't do that. And because we're low energy and because we're kind of in this mid recalibration stage, nothing feels sure, nothing feels stable, nothing feels aligned at all. And we feel that in our physical body, specifically with the bone aches, specifically with the temperature fluctuations that at this particular juncture is running more cold than anything else. That is taking a major, major effect on the cold feet that we are feeling. Pisces energy rules over the feet. And, Pisces energy being the depth of the cold ass ocean, I think that many of us are feeling, emotionally speaking, like we're hypothermic, like we're numbed out. We feel everything so much that we feel nothing at all. Now, this is going to be temporary, and thank goodness for that. But with this particular energy kind of kicking off this week, in combination with Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, also standing at a standstill in preparation for stationing direct, there's this weird headspace that we're in. And again, he's in Scorpio energy, so there's a lot of fixations, there's a lot of obsessions, there's a lot of dark thoughts, dark memories, dark narratives that we are going to flip the script on, but we're not there yet. And so with all of these energies and Venus sitting at this 29th degree in Scorpio, I say that because wow, the emoji where he's like gritting his teeth, like, ooh, gripping. Well, that is this weekend. So Mercury kind of adding this weird ass headspace that we're in, there's like this dazed and confused type of energy. Now, as uncomfortable as this may be, it's actually prime opportunity for us to be receiving huge amounts of information, downloads, epiphanies, revelations, and in combination with the Pisces energy of that first quarter moon, and of course Saturn at this 25 degrees direct Pisces energy now, these are working together, and they're working together in a very fluid, very intense type of way in order for us to, again, receive epiphanies and revelations that we weren't prepared to receive even this time last week. So we have these racing thoughts that are going absolutely nowheres. We are fixated on trying to come up with a solution that we just keep going in this very twisted loop, not coming up with anything. It feels like we're overstimulated, like there's too many tabs open, but if you asked us what we were thinking about, we couldn't tell you if our life depended on it. We're trying to focus very, very hard on coming up with solutions, and there's absolutely zero focus to be had. Now, a lot of that is because, again, Mercury is standing still. He is essentially sobering up from this altered state of consciousness that he's been in for the last couple of weeks. But we also have to remind ourselves that Sagittarius season in its entirety doesn't really give us a lot of stable focus. We have ADHD squirrel brain. We're all over the place. And when the dark thoughts or the dark topics and themes kind of kick in, the optimism, the positivity of Sag season tries to talk us out of that. But it's this like weird back and forth debate, this weird limbo state that we are in right now, and it doesn't feel good. Now, I want to throw Venus being at a 29 degree in Scorpio in here. That is a hard activation. And as I talked about in last week's forecast, that the end of this week, those hard activations were actually going to intensify. That's why we're sitting at the final degrees of Scorpio energy. Now, when Venus actually shifts into that Sag energy, she has to sit at that 29th degree in direct opposition to Uranus, the Great Awakener, who is retrograde in this Taurus energy that is trying to break us out of the holding patterns, trying to show us that holding on to the materialistic items, possessions, holding on to the same routines, people, places, and things, it's doing us no favors. We are going to have a major change of heart. And as Venus moves into this Sagittarius energy, that's kind of when we feel the heaviness, the weight of the emotional baggage in which we've been carrying kind of get lifted. But we're not there yet. And under the influence of, again, Saturn's stationing direct, this first quarter moon in Pisces, Mercury standing at a standstill, preparing to direct, and Venus at a 29 degree in opposition of Uranus, this is a lot. This is a lot on our central nervous system. This is a lot of anxiety. This is a lot of emotion. This is a lot of spinning in the headspace. And, this could, Venus in particular, This heart activation can manifest as a rapid heart rate or feeling like there is an arrhythmia taking place in that heart space as well. There is a heaviness there for sure. We're feeling the weight of that emotional baggage, but we're also confused AF on how it is that we're going to let this emotional baggage go. This is the breakdown breakthrough point. So we have a breakdown breakthrough point taking place in our heart space, in our head space, and in the, I'm going to call it confidence that we are currently standing in on trying to prepare ourselves to take center stage, to go out in front of the world and actually, play our part and play it well. We have to boss up. And having that Saturn energy really kind of intensify where it is that we do have to boss up, there's definitely a lot going on in the physical body, mind, body, and soul. And so you could have emotional breakdowns. You could have emotional breakthroughs. You could have a breakdown now and then a breakthrough 30 seconds later and then another breakdown. This is the purge. This is the release. This is the surrendering. This is the ending. This is the closure that we've been building towards. And sometimes you have to feel the heaviness and the weight in order to truly appreciate how much emotional baggage you've been kind of carrying into the present moment. And you're definitely going to have that reframed in a much better perspective when we move into the Sagittarius energy. And suddenly that weight gets immediately lifted and we become very aware of how free we feel and how much fun we want to have and where we want to let our hair down and where we kind of want to add a little bit of spice back into life. And that is definitely what Sag energy is all about. I want to go back and talk about Mercury for a second, because Mercury, although he does affect the headspace, he also rules over communication. And that means that our throat chakras are being activated in a big way. And as we talked about last week, we've been biting our tongue on a lot of things, a lot of truth that we want to be kind of spitting. And we're almost there, but we're not there yet, which means that that throat chakra is still kind of tight. We may be having coughing fits, trying to kind of release the emotion out of our lung space that gets stuck in our throat that we're trying to cough up. Maybe that's phlegm, maybe it's clearing, maybe you have a dry throat. It's kind of weird though, right? Because we have all this water energy, but yet we're kind of erring on the side of dryness. Now, I know we're in Sagittarius season, but if you look at the elemental energy profile, we're still very dominant in water. And specifically to have Mercury in a water sign, you would think that there would be more phlegm, that there would be a lot more spit in your mouth. But what is happening here is we're actually on the drier side of things. There is phlegm coming up, being broken up from the emotional baggage that we are releasing in the chest space. So that's coming from the lungs, but we're still trying to get it out of the throat. We may be finding it very hard to swallow. Why? Because the truth of the matter is very hard to swallow at this particular point in time. The information, the data, the details coming at us is not only hard to chew, it's hard to swallow. And I feel like this week we are going to experience this weird morning breath taste. You know, that film in your mouth? That film is coming back. Fuzzy sweaters at its finest. And what's even stranger about it is that we're going to be very, very, very thirsty. Why? Because we're thirsty for knowledge. We're thirsty for change. We're thirsty for clarity. But again, it's kind of oxymoronic because it usually doesn't happen like that when Mercury is in a water sign. So we're definitely going to be feeling a lot of fluctuation, change in our throat space. And I want to talk about the fact that this week, because specifically when the moon is in Aries energy, we could have a lot of jaw pain, jaw tension, toothaches as well, in combination with that funky film that is definitely going to be taking over. I think that the thirst that we feel, we're going to try and hydrate this film out of our mouths. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to taste awful for the majority of this week. That being said, though, I feel like there's a lot going on in our digestive tract that is creating this not so nice state in our mouth. We're going through a big purge. And I know that we've been purging specifically through Scorpio season, but the digestion issue this week is due to all the water, right? So Saturn direct in Pisces energy, that's water. First quarter moon in Pisces, that's water. Mercury in Scorpio energy, that's water. We have a lot of water. And there's even more planets that I didn't rattle off that are in water, but our Our digestive system is like we're bloated, we're half nauseous, there's a flip-floppy type of sensation going on in our gut. This is going to affect hunger swings. So you may be nauseous AF, but yet want to eat a horse. And again, not literally, but you know what I mean. You could find throughout the course of this week, specifically at the beginning of the week with the moon in Aries, that you're more hungry than anything else. That is definitely going to intensify when the moon shifts into Taurus energy, because we love comfort foods when the moon is in Taurus. But then when the moon shifts into Gemini energy, that's where the full moon is, you might be eating your feelings, or you might want to puke up your feelings. It could go either way. Again, there's an extreme division with that Gemini energy. But towards the end of the week, when the moon moves into her rulership in Cancer energy, that's where we become seasick again. That's where we become bloated again. That's where we're craving something, but we don't know what that is, and we feel very unfulfilled. And again, you could also find that even as stomach sick as you may be, you're still just force feeding yourself, because we do tend to eat our emotions. Specifically, when the moon in Cancer comes into a conjunction with Jupiter, who is retrograde in this Cancer energy, that's going to be an overwhelming sense of trying to kind of ground, to feel good, to feel better. And we tend to overindulge when Jupiter touches anything. And in Cancer energy, because there's going to be this like gaping void of emotion that we want to fill, we may be filling that with food, whether we feel like we want to be eating or not. So we want to pay attention to that. I feel like because the central nervous system is being overwhelmed here this week, specifically around the full moon in Gemini, because that's a lot of energy, there's going to be a sensitivity to light, to sound, to texture, to energy, to information as well. Specifically under that full moon in Gemini, information is going to be coming at us at an accelerated rate that we're just not prepared for. And there's going to be a internal processing going on at a jacked up speed that we haven't experienced before. And that in itself is going to put our central nervous system on overload. But I want to talk specifically about the fact that, yes, sensitivity to light, okay, but our eyes are still going through this change, this transformation. It's almost like we have a blurriness there. It's almost like there's sleep in our eyes and we can't get it out. And we're rubbing our eyes and we get that beautiful kaleidoscope type of sensation when we do it. And we could just lay down and want to rub our eyes pretty much all day. But when we open them, everything is just too much. And a lot of that is because what we're seeing in our lives right now is too much. We don't know how to process it. We're not seeing it clearly. Again, Mercury is going to take a couple of weeks to get out of this post-retrograde shadow period. So the clarity isn't there. We want it to be there. There's epiphanies popping off in our inner realm. We are gaining clarity in our inner realm, but we're not seeing the positive change and transformation in our external realm as of yet. And so the eyes are still going through this weird adjustment where we want to see things clearly, but when we do, they're not really nice. They're not appealing. So like there's this squinting that we're doing, trying to only see the good parts. And that in itself is creating tension behind the eyes. There's a pulling of that eye. And the vision is not only blurry, but there's a lot of, I call them sparkles, where these color bursts kind of pop off in your peripheral. Also with this sensitivity, we're going to have ear ringing, but that ear ringing is also directly associated with new information, data, and details coming in. Typically speaking, when you have that loud piercing or that loud ringing in your ear, that's when downloads are happening. That's when new information is streaming in through the crown. We're definitely going to have head pressure, specifically around that full moon in Gemini. But the ear ringing is going to be a little bit more distorted. I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it correctly, but the loud, piercing, ringing sensation that we normally get, it's going to feel like it's in a different key or at a different volume or at a different frequency. It's going to feel more like a bell than a high siren pitch. And that's the best way that I can put it into words. And I think that when you experience it, it'll probably make more sense, but in preparation to experiencing it, I probably totally dropped the ball on being able to prepare you for what that sensation is going to feel like. It's just different. And it's different because we're different. And we're different because the energy is different. And the energy is different because we're in a different timeline. We're in a different chapter now. We're in a different narrative now. And everything is shifting. And that's why this week, specifically because we're going through the moon in Aries to the moon in Cancer, where this is an identity recalibration, we are essentially doing the inner work here this week in preparation to share that inner change with the world when we kind of see the shift from the moon moving into Leo energy, taking us all the way through until Libra energy. That's where we start sharing the inner changes with the outer realm. So that ear ringing is definitely going to be different. And I think that the sensitivity to texture is because, well, first of all, if you're hypersensitive, you know already that you can get a very easy and clear ick from particular textures. But our central nervous system is jacked up. Our bodies are changing. The energetic field is changing. And the sensations that we basically interact with, they're being formulated in a different feedback loop in our mental plane. And so everything is changing, and a change is not fun, nor is it favored. People really go out of their way to avoid change and transition, but you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. Basically, I want you, and again, I think this week, the best analogy that I can give you is that we're starring in a play. The final act is about to commence. We are backstage. We are, rehearsing our lines. We are walking through all the different movements that we have rehearsed before. And we see the audience, they're stirring. We see the lights go down in the auditorium. We know that the curtain is about to open and we're about to puke. And maybe we feel like we're going to shit ourselves. And maybe we feel overstimulated by our clothes, by the sounds. You could hear a pin drop, right? It's that kind of echo. And it just feels like we don't know whether we're going to be brave enough to go out on stage or whether we're going to bail on our people, on fellow actors and actresses, and leave them high and dry. Now, there is no leaving them high and dry, but our ego programming doesn't know that. It's going to tell us to do that because it's scary to put yourself out there, and it's scary to take on that role, and it's scary to be put on spotlight and kind of be scrutinized while you're going through this process, this procedure. So everything is overstimulating, and the textures that you may once found very comforting, maybe they give you the ick. Maybe they turn you off altogether. Maybe your temperature gauge, being able to, get yourself into a bath. Maybe your normal temperature is too hot or too cold for you. This recalibration affects every freaking part of us, mind, body, and soul. And specifically because the central nervous system has to get so overwhelmed that it fries itself out before it can reboot and recalibrate. This is the week that we're in. We're fried, we're numbed out, we are basically awaiting a reset, we are recalibrating the inner system in preparation to take center stage. So speaking about temperature, I feel like this week, once we get all these planets specifically moving in a direct position, and even more specifically with Venus moving into that Sagittarius energy, I feel like the temperature gauge is going to be switched to hot. Okay, we're going to be running on the hot side of things. And there's going to be an extreme temperature takeover. First of all, our head space is going to feel on fire. So there's a lot of reasons for that. Specifically, when the moon is in Aries energy, there's always heat in the head. Mercury stationing direct, there's a lot of information going through our brains. There's heat that comes with that. Uranus being aspected by Venus before she shifts into that Sag energy. That is brand new information coming from the higher realms of intelligence busting through our crown. That's going to bring some heat. And then when Venus shifts into that Sag energy, that's heat in the chest space, in the heart space, in the core of our physical body. So we're going to feel on fire, and that fire energy could be limited to limbs as well. So we go from cold feet at the beginning of the week to very hot feet, feeling on fire. Maybe your hands are on fire. Fun fact about the arms here this week. I did want to talk about that as well. Shoulder pain for sure, because we're bearing the weight of the roles in which we've committed to go out on the center stage and actually wrap this final act up. The amount of, I'm going to call it mental processing and changes that's going on in our mental plane, that is very heavy to process as well. So our head is feeling a little bit heavier than normal. Again, the neck is the same kind of energy as the throat. And we have a very, very intense throat chakra activation going on here this week that I already talked about. But from the shoulders down to the fingertips, we're going through this, I want to call it just like spasming, tingling, hard, like very hard spasms of heat being kind of shot through our upper limbs. Now, if you have any type of nerve disorder, you're going to know what I mean by this sensation. But like when your hands start burning and there's a tingling sensation there and it feels like it's half numb, it feels like it's falling asleep, but there is this very harsh discomfort. I don't know if I would call it pain, but it's definitely discomfort. It's definitely going to affect the shoulder joint, the elbows, and the wrists and the fingertips the most. Now, why is this happening, you may ask? Because this is the creator energy. We've been working very hard to be the version of self that we need to be in order to carry and bear the weight of the responsibility of the wisdom, the knowledge that we have. We've been trying to activate these creator abilities, but we needed to be the version of self that was responsible enough to actually activate them. The creator abilities have been coming online. When we talk about creation, we talk about working with our hands. We talk about using our physical body as the medium, as the channel, if you will, to take that creativity, that idea, and bring it to life through the physical form. And we need to be putting hands on certain situations and circumstances to not only wrap them up, but to prepare a clean space for us to build something new upon that. And because of that, there is this like violent lightning type of energy coursing through our central nervous system, coursing through our bodies that are activating the shoulders and the arms, the hands, because that is essentially the parts of the body that we need to strengthen. We need to be able to harness and house the kind of energy that we are going to need to be constantly channeling through us in order to bring the goal, the vision, the dream into fruition, into this materialized world. And we do that through our hands. And it's not going to feel fun. We're going to have a certain weakness, if you will, in our arms, in our wrists, especially as this activation comes on full blast. It's not going to feel fun. It's not supposed to. But it has to happen in order for this recalibration to happen. So I want to also give you this visual as far as a recalibration goes. So, you know, when you're like upgrading your software or your computer, maybe even on your phone, whatever the case, just pick a technology and go with it. And you can see that progress bar going, but when the progress bar kind of gets to 100%, you see all of these rapid data files. You know, it goes very fast, so you really can't read them, but you can see that it's going through all the directory files, right? Or the folders and files in that directory of your computer. That's what's happening to our physical bodies this week. So our physical body and our energetic field, they're integrating. And when I talk about integration, you're definitely going to feel this integration energy be a lot more present while the moon is in Taurus energy, because that's where we embody the changes and transformations that have been going on in our inner realm and in our energetic field. It's where the energy field, our energetic body, and the physical form, where they integrate, where they merge. And it doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. You could have flu-like symptoms on that day. And of course, the moon in Taurus precedes the full moon in Gemini. So we're already feeling hypersensitive and overstimulated anyways. But the heaviness and the weight that we feel in the physical body to keep us present, even as uncomfortable as we may be, that definitely pops off with the moon in Taurus. And if and when you have those particular aches and pains and those flu-like symptoms, just know that that's not regression, it's progression. We're recalibrating, we're integrating, we're merging the two bodies, the physical and the energetic, back into one. So we're looking forward to that. Of course, specifically around the full moon in Gemini, we have to expect headaches. Headaches, I think, are just a natural part of A, Mercury stationing direct, B, a full moon, and C, specifically Gemini energy. There's a lot going on in the headspace. And again, as we've been talking about, the change and the transformation that you want to see in your exterior realm, that all happens in the headspace first and foremost. You have to have a flip of the switch in the headspace before you can reorient your emotions to align with this new perspective, this new thought, this new idea. And the heart and the head need to get in alignment before you can engage the physical body to take action and make moves. Again, activating creator abilities in your upper limbs in order to actually take those actions, make those moves in those external circumstances that eventually we are going to see the progress in. Again, may I also remind you, we are wrapping up the final month of a year of 9. It is not supposed to be light and fluffy. It's not supposed to be futuristically focused. The only thing that is futuristically focused right now is us building the boldness, the bravery, the courage, the hype, the excitement of what could possibly be, just so we have the determination, the motivation to do the hard things, which is to wrap things up, close the door, lock that sucker, nail that sucker shut so that we don't go back. Okay. So this is definitely going to be an interesting week for us to fuse, again, endings with beginnings, heart versus head, energetic body with physical body, old timelines with new timelines, old information with new information. This is where we bridge the gap. The void that we've been sitting in, that is going to be over. Now we're in a merging point. And let me just say that sometimes the merge is more uncomfortable than sitting in the void was. And you're going to learn that in a big way here this week. What I would also want to say is that when the moon shifts into Taurus and we start to do that merge, we start to do that anchor, what you're going to realize is that the mental plane starts to slow down. And the emotional acceleration that we're experiencing when Venus shifts into that Sagittarius energy will also be slowing down. That Taurus energy grounds us out and kind of gets us back into a more comfortable rhythm, a rhythm that isn't about hurry up and finish the damn thing. It's about how can I make myself comfortable while being uncomfortable in this present moment. So there is going to be a rapid acceleration specifically from the beginning of the week in our heart space, in our head space, in this manic energy that we've been sitting in. And then all of a sudden it's going to slow down. It's going to align. It's going to be more harmonious. But at the same time, the merging effect, the integration effect isn't fluffy either. There is going to be an intensity that we are very aware of, specifically in the present moment, specifically with the physical form when that moon shifts into Taurus energy. So let's talk about towards the end of the week specifically. So this would be post full moon Gemini, and when the moon shifts into a rulership in Cancer energy, and when the moon in Cancer energy conjuncts Jupiter, who is retrograde in that Cancer energy. I want to talk about that specifically. And of course, this is going to be the tail end of the week, that this is going to be a little bit more intense. But there's going to be, again, I want to talk about divisional extreme options here. We come out of the full moon in Gemini on either sides of the table, right? So you're going to realize where it is that there is a distance between your heart and your head, where there is a gap that we still need to kind of merge. You're going to realize the options, the decisions, the choices that you have, how far away you are from actually aligning with one of those things. And then the extremism, the dualistic nature of Gemini energy gets kind of pushed into when the moon shifts into Cancer energy, because we're still going to be in the full moon vibe. It's just the moon is shifting. And we're going to face two very different moods and attitudes, let's call it. First of all, there is a withdrawal. There's an introvertedness that takes over when the moon is in Cancer energy. We're either going to become extremely clingy, like stage 5 clinger, specifically to a particular person that makes you feel safe and secure and comfortable, or there's going to be an extreme avoidance, and there is not going to be a middle ground, okay? And that's the hard part, is that there's no safe space in between these extreme moods and attitudes. Now, the reason why is because the Cancer energy is overly attached to the past, trying to keep things the same. We know that isn't an option anymore. We are changing, we are transforming, whether we like it or not. But we either realize how important someone is to us, the familiarity, the groundedness that they offer, the safety, the security, the stability that they offer. And because of that, we're so overly appreciative of having somebody in our lives that offers us that we're so afraid of losing them, or we're so afraid of that connection changing or transforming of what it has always been for us, that we're going to become stage 5 clinger, okay? Which isn't cute, by the way. On the other side of the coin, because again, we're talking about extremes here, you could realize that the people that you are currently sharing time, energy, and space with don't provide you any of those things. And in fact, they take away from your comfortability. They take away from you feeling like yourself. They take away from the energy that you want to give them and probably have been giving them. But you're realizing now, because again, there is this change and transformation going on in our energetic exchanges with people in our lives, that you just want to avoid them like the freaking plague. Now, when I say to you that it could be one person or it could be a group of people, I would highly recommend, and I know we're moving into December, I know holiday season is ramping up. This is why everything has been constructed in this false matrix in order to put us in situations and circumstances where we have to be social, where we're out there doing more than normal when we should be retreating, because that's what the energy needs us to do. This is why we're confused. This is why we're discombobulated all the time. This is why we are out of alignment with the natural order of the cosmos. What I'm getting at here is that I know that the season is ramping up. I know social scenes are ramping up as well. Towards the end of the week, it is highly advisable to stay the F away from large groups of people, okay? Like, you think that you're overstimulated on a normal basis with other people's energy and bullshit. This is going to be so extreme because, again, Jupiter's there, right? So he's magnifying everything. He's amplifying all of the discomfort. This is going to be so extreme that if you put yourself in a social situation where your central nervous system is getting overstimulated, you're going to crack. You're going to run out of there crying. You're going to have not only a panic attack, you're going to have an emotional breakthrough in front of a whole bunch of people that you would rather not have witness this particular point of vulnerability. This is like when the curtains open and we push ourselves out on the stage and we're in the spotlight and the audience has all eyes on us and we forget our freaking lines and we can't even choke out a word. All we can do is choke on our words. And we, in that moment, decide whether or not we're going to sit there and try to gain our bearings, stabilize, and therefore push through, or whether we're going to run off stage and kind of, blubber like a blubbering blubber. Because you know what? When emotions take over and you're in that state of emotional paralysis, you don't know what to do other than to release. And this is why, Cancer energy, we are in a stage of release. And if you push yourself to be around people or in situations and circumstances that your central nervous system and emotional disposition and mental plane are not ready for, you are setting yourself up for a very embarrassing disaster. So if you are hesitant at all about putting yourself out in the world, around a crowd, around a group of people, and you are pushing yourself to do it anyways, I highly recommend that you give yourself a multitude of time out sitting in the bathroom, anchoring in your energy, running your hands under cold water to try and ground that energy in, or else you will get so overstimulated that you're probably going to have a little bit of an emotional outburst. That's your cautionary note. Can't say more about it. Okay, so the last thing that I want to talk about is sleep and dreamscapes. So sleep is going to be a little bit disrupted here this week, mostly because, again, we're in Sag season. When we have Venus move into Sagittarius, there's going to be an activation, a palpitation in our heart space where the energy is surging. There is this want, need, and desire to kind of get out and live in the world again and kind of revisit how to make ourselves happy and how to actually enjoy the world around us. And that's going to impact our ability to stay still. Okay, so the restless energy becomes more and more and more. May I remind you, Sagittarius season, okay, so fire. Mars is in Sag, fire. Venus will be moving into Sag, fire, okay? We have a lot of fire building up. Now, that's great because it's going to kind of dissolve and dry up a lot of the water energy that we've been in, but we have so many ants in our pants, then it's going to be very hard to sleep. If you do sleep, your sleep is going to be disrupted, mostly because we are going to be having adrenaline-filled dream content. Now, adrenaline-filled dream content could mean a couple of things. Maybe you're being chased. Maybe there is, some sort of crisis going on in the dreamscape, which is very revealing about your mental and emotional state anyways. Maybe it's that you're excited in your dream, you're hyped up about something, and that is the case of adrenaline. But either way, your dreamscapes are going to be so freaking intense, and it's going to elevate your heart rate, and you are going to be sweating to death while you sleep. And there's going to be this like heart pounding momentum that not only takes over your dream state, but it's going to stick with you when you wake up. Now, the Pisces energy that I kind of rattled off and talked about, that is the dreamscape. Saturn is now direct. He will this week be starting to slowly but surely move forward. And although it is one solid baby step, one foot in front of the other, we're still moving into a path, into a direction that we're not seeing clearly, that we're leaning back on hope and faith and trust to try and get us through this particular final act. We are putting ourselves out on center stage. We are waiting the curtains to kind of, bust wide open, the spotlight to be on us. And although we are doing it with as much boldness, bravery, and confidence as possible, we're just still not sure that if we open our mouth that the words that we've been rehearsing are going to come out. And so we have to have hope and faith that when we get ourselves in that moment, that our bodies are going to know what to do, and that our memories are going to serve us, and that we're going to be able to play our part as perfectly as we've rehearsed it in our mind space. But that's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of shoulda, coulda, wouldas, ifs, ands, and buts, as far as I'm concerned. And that overwhelming confusion that we are currently sitting in through this recalibration week in our awake life is going to be amplified, magnified, and just intensified as far as the hyperness, the adrenaline, the restlessness goes in our dreamscape. So we want to pay attention for that. So guys, I'm taking a look at my list. I think I have crossed off everything that I wanted to talk about. Again, not a bad week. Okay, it's not a bad week. It's just that this is a transitional week and people don't like transition. And even more than that, we're coming out of all of these planetary transitions, which are not stable. And we're hoping and praying for just this dramatic shift in the energy and in our lives where everything is going to be all right and be okay and give us the answers that we've been kind of searching for just overnight. And it just doesn't happen that quickly. So we just have to understand that this week is about our recalibration, merging the energy body back with the physical form, merging the heart and the head back together in a sense of wholeness, and walking our very nervous ass out on the middle of the stage while the curtains are still drawn, knowing damn well that when they open, we are going to perform our final act. And we are going to have to boss up, and we're going to have to put on a brave face, and we're going to have to fake it until we make it, because we've been practicing for this particular final act for a very long time. And the spotlight is on us. And now it's time to boss up, to get our shit together, and actually wrap it up in a way that we can be proud of. So guys, I thank you so much for tuning in. I send you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.